Hi everyone, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the Cove in Taiji as a pod of dolphins has been netted into the Cove. This is a very unusual time for dolphins to be in the Cove. The hunters usually go out at sunrise to hunt for dolphins, and something obviously motivated them to go out hunting in the middle of the day today. We were just doing one of our checks through Taiji, as we always do every day, and was totally shocked to see a pod of dolphins in the Cove. We called a blue cove this morning. The boats didn't go out, we had some quite stormy weather. But as I say, unfortunately on one of our checks, or on the last check that we did in Taiji, we noticed these dolphins in the Cove. So this is actually a pod of bottlenose dolphins, which are the most lucrative in the captivity industry. Live bottlenose dolphins that are trained can be sold for up to 6 figures, and so this is extremely profitable for the captivity industry. And this is what drives the dolphin hunts and the slaughters and the captures here in Taiji. The hunters must have received some sort of tip-off from a fisherman that there were bottlenose dolphins in the area, and so they found them and have driven them in. There are no tarps across on the beach, and the dolphins are completely netted in, so there is no escape for them. But there are no hunters around at the moment, so we have no idea how long these dolphins have been here. They do seem quite stressed out. They keep tail slapping the surface, and they're swimming very tightly together. From up here we can't exactly tell how many dolphins there are, but we'll obviously have a look at our footage when we get a moment and try and get an accurate count. If you're just joining us, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the Cove as a pod of bottlenose dolphins has been driven in completely unexpectedly. This drive happened in the middle of the day, and we were completely unaware of it. It was only from just driving through Taiji now, doing our afternoon check, that we noticed that there were dolphins netted in. So one of the Cove monitors has just told me that there are a few juveniles in this pod. It's very possible that these dolphins will be left overnight. The hunters do this to tire out the dolphins. They're without food or water overnight, and so they're more submissive the next day. Bottlenose dolphins are usually selected for the captivity industry. They're the ones you normally see in marine parks and swim with dolphin programs. And the hunters will basically be looking for the prettiest bottlenose dolphins with the least amount of scarring, that will look the best on display, and also that are young enough so they're easy to train. It's completely devastating to think that we had a blue cove this morning, but this afternoon that has changed, and even though no dolphins have been killed yet, we still class this as a red cove because their lives will be completely changed after today. As I say, there are no hunters around at the moment. There was a skiff when we first arrived, but it's disappeared. So we don't know if they're leaving and they're coming back, or if they're done for the day and they'll be leaving the dolphins overnight. We're not sure yet. We'll stay here until anything changes. Absolutely devastating that these bottlenose dolphins' lives will change today. You can see them tail slapping the surface of the water. They're clearly stressed out by this environment. They've just been harassed and chased into the cove. And they're in a completely alien environment. Please share this live stream. And please encourage all your friends and family not to visit facilities that hold dolphins captive. It's not a natural life for them. They belong wild and free in the ocean. Often people say, well, they get a good life in captivity and the trainers really care for them and look after them. But just last week we saw one of the trainers, a group of trainers transferring a bottlenose dolphin into another pen. And during this transfer, the dolphin was appearing to struggle and flail about in the water, and the trainer kneed it in the head in order to stop it, and wrestled it into submission. So these trainers, they don't care. They're the ones who decide which dolphins get to live and which dolphins get to be slaughtered in the cove. We also often get asked why we can't cut the nets and why we can't free the dolphins. And that's because we would just be arrested and deported, and then there'd be no one here to document what goes on. Thank you so much for joining us. We're currently live on Facebook and Instagram. There are a couple of juveniles within this pod. So if you're just joining us, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the Cove, and we had called a blue cove this morning, but unfortunately the cove is now red, as a pod of bottlenose dolphins has been driven in and netted in. There are no sign of the hunters at the moment, so it is possible they'll be left overnight without food or water. Bottlenose dolphins are the most profitable within the captivity industry. And a live trained bottlenose dolphin can be sold for up to 6 figures in dollars. Captivity industry is extremely profitable. And that's what motivates the hunters to carry on hunting dolphins. So again, we're not sure how many dolphins are in the cove at the moment. We'll have a look back at our footage later and try and get an accurate count. The boats did stay in this morning. They usually go out around sunrise to hunt for dolphins, and they're usually back before midday. But we, as we were driving through, doing our afternoon check through Taiji, we noticed that there were dolphins netted in the cove. It's absolutely devastating that these dolphins were just moments ago swimming wild and free in the ocean, and now they've been netted in, ready to be selected. Dolphins in captivity do not live natural lives. They are hand-fed frozen fish and have to undergo a lot of medical treatment and procedures like tubing, which helps to hydrate them, as they don't get the sufficient amount of water from the frozen fish that they're fed. And they also have to perform in return for the fish. Food deprivation is a common technique to get the dolphins to do what the trainers want them to. And they're confined in a pen or a tank for the remainder of their lives. They're not able to swim 100 kilometers a day like they do in the wild. All they can do is swim round and round in circles. They're also separated from their families and often placed with other dolphins from other pods and sometimes other species, and forced to form artificial pods. And there's nowhere to escape to in a pen or a tank. And so there's often aggression between dolphins. Please go to dolphinproject.com and hit the Take Action link to find out more ways you can get involved and support our work, and help us raise awareness about the dolphin slaughters and captures that happen here in Taiji, and also about the captivity industry in general. Captivity is a global problem. It's not just here in Japan. There are several facilities in the US and across Europe that hold dolphins captive. And so we need to end the demand for dolphins in captivity in order to stop the supply. So if you're just joining us, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the Cove in Taiji as a pod of Bottlenose dolphins has been netted in. Cove monitors discovered dolphins in the Cove on our afternoon check. We didn't see the drive. The hunters went out at a completely random time. And this morning they didn't leave the harbour at all. It's very possible that the hunters received a tip-off from a fisherman. There's no sign of any hunters at the moment. There are a couple of nets separating the dolphins from the ocean, and the tarps are not pulled across at the Cove, so it is possible these dolphins will be left overnight. We'll stay here obviously until we get more information. The chirping you can hear is from the birds in the trees nearby. That's not the dolphins making any noise. It's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Taiji. And it's very unusual to see dolphins in the Cove at this time. We really appreciate all your support. Please do share this live stream and make sure you're following Dolphin Project on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date with our posts. I'm just going to let the live stream run for about a minute or so, just while I check something, so please bear with me. Hi everyone, sorry to keep you waiting. If you're just joining us, this is Dolphin Project. We're live from the Cove in Taiji as a pod of bottlenose dolphins has been netted in. We were doing our afternoon check through Taiji and noticed that dolphins had already been netted in. We didn't see a drive. The hunters went out at a completely random time in the day. The hunters usually leave the harbour just before sunrise, and 12 boats go out and they go in search of dolphins. When they're out at sea, if they come across a pod that's on their quota, a species that's on their quota, they'll get into a drive formation, which means all of the boats line up and they lower banger poles into the water, poles which have a bell shape on the end of them. So they lower this underwater and then they bang on the end of the pole to create a wall of sound underwater, which really disorientates the dolphins and means that the hunters can push them in any direction that they want them to go in. And they push them towards the coast of Taiji, towards this cove, where they're then netted in, where they'll either go through the captive selection process, so the prettiest and the youngest dolphins will be selected and put in an aquarium, a tank or a pen for the remainder of its life. And the rest of the pod are often completely slaughtered. Our last red cove was yesterday, where a pod of melon-headed whales were driven in, and all 9 of them were slaughtered for their meat. Dolphin meat isn't really consumed here in Japan anymore due to the high level of mercury that's in the meat. And mercury poisoning can cause all sorts of health problems and dangerous to consume. Hence why not many people eat it anymore. It's the captivity industry that fuels these hunts though. The hunters try and mask it by saying it's their tradition and their culture, but the captivity industry has only boomed since the 1960s. And even though whaling is part of Japanese culture, dolphin hunting is not. And it's merely just the amount of money that a captive dolphin can bring in that motivates these hunters to carry on hunting. So you can see these dolphins are just swimming very closely to one another. We've seen them tail slapping the surface, and just moments ago one was exhaling really loudly. We could hear it. I'm not sure if you would have been able to hear over the live stream. The hunts here are completely legal. The hunters are given a quota by the Fisheries Union of how many of each species they are permitted to take from the ocean. So this season, the quota for bottlenose dolphins is 298. So it doesn't appear that anybody is coming back for these dolphins. There's no sign of any hunters or trainers. And there are 2 nets that have been strewn across, you can see, let me just show you, in order to stop the dolphins from escaping back out to sea. So it's very possible that these dolphins will be held overnight here. I'm gonna end this live stream in just a minute, but just to summarize, these dolphins were found netted into the cove as Cove monitors were returning to Taiji for our afternoon check. It's a completely random time for the hunters to go out to drive dolphins in, and so it's most likely that they were tipped off by fishermen that there were bottlenose dolphins in the area. Bottlenose dolphins are the most lucrative within the captivity industry, and so these dolphins will endure the captive selection process at some point. So we'll stick around here, and if anything starts up, if anyone turns up, then we'll be live streaming again. But if not, the dolphins will be held here overnight, and in which case we'd be here first thing in the morning to document whatever happens to these dolphins. So this is a pod of bottlenose dolphins that have been netted into the cove, and we'll keep you updated. Please keep an eye on our social media pages, our Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. We will be posting updates. But thank you so much for joining us. Please head to dolphinproject.com to find out more ways you can take action and help put an end to what happens here in Japan. Thank you.